What's up YouTube? Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. We're going to be going over the LTD19 V1 versus the SD9/SD40 here on the Shots with Jay channel. Any like, comment, or subscribe, I do greatly appreciate it. Does help me out a lot. So I guess we'll start off with the Lone Wolf, right? What is the Lone Wolf? I went ahead and made a video directly on this, so you guys can also go ahead and check that out. But long story short is Lone Wolf was pretty much a company that made a bunch of upgraded Glock parts, since a lot of Glock guys like to always upgrade their parts. And eventually they said, well, you know, we're always making parts for them. Why don't we just make our, you know, entire Glock pretty much upgraded already? So that's what they did with this. I really like this piece. It has the lightning cuts. The serrations go from here all the way to the top. You can notice that they do also go above the lightning cut. They are the same length, so this answered the serration problem that I have with many other pieces. It does have an integrated magwell at the bottom, really hugs the hand at the bottom, and this is a compact frame, so not a full size and not a micro. So this is pretty much for hybrid use of home defense, duty, and carry, which is the Goldilocks area for me. I do like the compact frame the most between all the variants. Same thing here, also based off the Glock originally. This is from Smith&Wesson, the SD series. They recently went ahead and released the 2.0 version, which I also do plan on picking up. The new version also is a silver slide, just like this one, except that it has a black frame. I think there's also other color models available or exclusive deals elsewhere. But yeah, this is also based off the Glock. So they're both based off the Glock, okay? They're both based off the Glock. But we're gonna see who did it better and what they how they compare to each other. And actually, if you put them side by side right here, right there's about even. Super similar in sizing, crazy similar, and there's a good reason for that. So one is that they're both compacts, so they're both supposed to be in this, you know, around these measurements, because this is for the dual use of home defense and carry, so they can both fulfill both of those purposes, right? But aside from that, go ahead and lock this one back, and we're gonna go ahead and lock this one back right. They both contain a 4-inch barrel. And you know, for Lone Wolf, a lot of people go ahead and they get these barrels just to upgrade their Glocks, but of course they just went ahead and put it in here since they were making it anyways. So good to them on that. As for the barrel use, so keep in mind this is the SD40, right? But if you did have the SD9, it's going to be the exact same dimensions, the exact same barrel length, the exact same everything. So if you have the SD9, these measurements in this video, it still applies to you. And a lot of people do have the SD9. Not so many have the 40. So taking a look at the barrels, they're both a 4-inch barrel. I know Glock usually does, you know, 4 point something or 5 point something. They always have like little specific, you know, measurements and lengths that are not, you know, to the dot of the inch. But for both of these, it is just 4 inches flat, which is pretty good. I think that's a good compact barrel length, you know, for decent velocity and concealability at the same time. So one thing that I noticed right off the bat, right, when you're looking at both of these locked back, is that on the SD, you do have a polymer guide rod. So that is one thing that I'm going to knock off, right? Now, it's never jammed on me or anything like that, and I don't think it'll break. I'm pretty sure it'll always run. But regardless, that's not the point. The point is just, you know, for durability purposes down the road, you know, when you have to exchange parts, or, you know, if you're in a war zone, things like that, right? Right here, you can just see right there, it is a steel guide rod, metal. So that is one thing that I'm going to go ahead and give over here to the Lone Wolf in comparison to the SD. You see it right there. It's a polymer guide rod. Now for serrations on the slide, they both go all the way up, just the way I like it. and they both have the same length on each side. But if I had to go ahead and pick some serrations that were better, I'm going to go ahead and give it over here to the Lone Wolf. And the reasoning for that is because even though I do like these and they go all the way up, it's kind of hard to tell on camera, but the front serrations, considering there's this lightning cut, they're actually a little bit thicker than the back serrations. You see the back serrations right there? The front are a little bit thicker, and obviously I assume that's because since there's that lightning cut, it's going to be harder to rack back. Well, by thickening the serrations, they pretty much just remove that issue. So, and here at the top of the barrel, you do see it says 40 Smith & Wesson. Not sure if you guys can see that. It says it right there, 40 Smith & Wesson, right next to the loaded chamber indicator. I do like loaded chamber indicators. I know a lot of people don't because it releases gas up and stuff like that. But considering these both don't have optic cuts, I think that's actually a pro. You know, it's not a con, or it's nothing that obstructs your view of vision, nothing like that. It's not going to go up to, like, you know, blind your eyesight or your field of vision. So a loaded chamber indicator is something that I really do like. Now here, I know they have this right here. Maybe you can tell if this is round loaded, but I really wish that there was a loaded chamber indicator at the top of it, and it doesn't have it here on this one. So right there, I'm going to give that one to the SD40. Here on the barrel, you do see the Lone Wolf logo for the brand. It's like a little wolf. You see the 19 because it's based off of the Glock 19, and then -9 because it is chambered in 9mm. As far as recoil, obviously considering this one's a 40, it's going to have more bang than this one. However, even if this were the SD9, for recoil, this would go ahead and be lighter recoiling. And there's several reasons for that. So one is that this one has an extended beaver tail. This one doesn't, and I'll show you right now. So this one does have an extended beaver tail, which reduces slide bite, but it also means that you can get a higher grip right there on the frame, which is closer to the bore axis, you know, like with the barrel. So that means that the closer it is to the barrel, the flatter shooting it will be. So that's one, okay? Two is that the lightning cuts, less mass having to go back and forth between each round when the slide, you know, is racking back. That's also going to be a reduction in the recoil. So that does help. The third is that the trigger is nice. The trigger is better than also the SD, and the trigger can go ahead and reduce the recoil. The fourth is that there is also this magwell here that hugs the bottom of your hand, which keeps it more locked in. You know, it's not going to be slipping up and down, or you don't really have to readjust your grip. And that's because this is keeping the hand in place. Now, if you have giant hands or something like that, you know, you might want to go to the Lone Wolf series that are based off the Glock 17, which is a full size, but this is based off the 19, which is a compact. And in additional, you do also have this angled cut here, right here at the muzzle, and that's for several reasons. One, to help with holstering, and two is that it also reduces a little bit of weight, just like these lightning cuts. And of course, lastly, just because it looks badass, just because it can. So, and I'm sure that's maybe the main reason, but there is also the other benefits. They both do have a 1913 pick rail, but this pick rail, I have like a little laser on it. Actually, maybe I can take that off. 1 second. Alrighty, there you go. I went ahead and took off the laser that was attached. So now you guys can get a better view of how it looks without any attachment, light or laser. Just how it is. Real sleek looking. So back to the 1913 pick rail. Believe it or not, this one is better. And the reasoning for that is, one, if you can tell right here at the edge, this one is longer. And they're both a 4-inch barrel, keep that in mind, and they're both compact. They're both a 4-inch barrel. They have the edges right here, but this one's longer. So what does that mean? It means you can fit more options for lights or lasers compared to this one. This one would be smaller. However, you also go ahead and look in the bottom. What do you guys notice right there? Sorry, what do you guys notice right there? So right here at the 1913 attachment area, if you guys can notice where the pick rail goes, this bottom gap right here, it's bigger than the first gap. It's wider than the first gap. So that does mess with it unless you have lights specifically designed for that, or laser specifically designed for that. So in other words, it's harder to click something on this part of the rail. So you're going to want to click it on this part of the rail, the bottom rail, because it's bigger, and this is what the classic 1913 is. This little one, I mean, I really don't know. You're going to have to go ahead and get something specific, or it might be like the Glock's specific ones, unless you go ahead and focus on attaching it to this part of the rail. So that's that. And then if you look over here on the bottom of this one, they're both the same size, and they both they're both thick on each side, so you can attach it to either gap right here on the rail. So in other words, if you want it, long story short, this one can fit a lot more options than this can for lights or lasers. I did go ahead and put extended takedowns on these. Extended takedown levers, you can see the greens right here, because the originals were just terrible. It was really hard to take this thing down. However, this one, they're blacked out, but they don't need them because they're already kind of extended. You can kind of see them poke out a little bit right there. So these need no exchanges or anything like that. Now, slide release. You guys know that I like the big button. Now, I do like how it's serrated right here, and then right here it does kind of poke out a bit to make it easier. It helps a little bit, but it's smaller than I would like, and I do know that that's because it's based off the Glock. So, you know, no really points knocked down there because it is based off of that. So if you're getting this, you know, you already know what you're getting into. But I do have the big preference of this. It's a much bigger slide release, just fits the whole thumb. So this does go ahead and win on that. Now, actually, on the texturing, I know I have the Talon grips on that. These are pretty cool right here because it has the magwell. But like, let's just say there was no option for Talon grips or nothing like that. I do plan on having grips here as well, because while it does have texturing, it doesn't go all the way up over here on the frame. And so it's kind of textured here, but then it's smooth right here. I would like texturing all the way up here, and especially right here, because this is where, you know, your support hand is, your thumb, if you're trying to balance that recoil and stuff like that. Now this one I didn't have to because it already comes with the texturing there on both sides. So right here it's like a index point, and then right here for your supporting hand, you know. So as for texturing, honestly, I'm gonna have to give it to the SD. The magwell does help, but let's just say there was no magwell or nothing like that, this texturing still might be better even without this Talon grip. Now it would have the same issue on not having the grip go all the way up, but maybe you guys can see it right here. The texturing is actually extremely aggressive in the back even without this, and for some people it might be a little too rough, but I do like the aggressive texturing, considering if you're actually ever in, you know, a moment where you got to use this thing, you know, you're gonna wish that you had good texturing. You're not gonna care about how your hand, you know, the texturing bits are going into the palm or nothing like that. You know, you need as much grip as possible. This cannot slip no matter what. You get me? So you need to have something like that in that moment. But considering it has the magwell, I'm okay with that. But texturing, SD, serrations, LTD 19, trigger, definitely LTD 19, though this does have the shadow systems trigger, and this has the apex. Even then, LTD 19, if this were an M&P though and I had an apex, that would be totally different, because that may be the best on the market. It's tough because Canik is pretty up there with the new guys with the TTI triggers, as well as like the Freedom Smith triggers. Those are awesome. Walther too. Walther's definitely up there because Canik is based off the Walther. But M&P, really hard to beat if you have the apex. However, with this configuration right here being an SD series, I'm going to go ahead and give the trigger here. Slide release, SD easily. Front texturing, also SD. Now, keep in mind, the SD, there is a pretty good aftermarket. Since this came out a while ago, there's still tons of things you can do onto it. You know, these do have the high-vis sights. The standard ones are just like the white dots. These do have better sights than the Lone Wolf LTD right here, but that's because this kind of came a little upgraded. These are the high-vis fiber optics, and this, I don't think they're plastic because they don't feel like plastic. They feel like a solid metal, but there's still that U-notch sights, which are still pretty good. They're not bad, right? But if I had to choose some sights, these would be better because these glow, and these don't glow. And then for the back plates, I do have something on this one. This one is just the one it comes with from the Lone Wolf company, but considering this is Glock compatible, this is based off the Glock, you can do anything in the world that you want to this thing. You can add any Glock barrel in here, any Glock slide in here, the Glock triggers in here. You can do anything like that. So that does go to Lone Wolf easily, the aftermarket. And also this extended beaver tail, I do really like how it has that. This is honestly my first piece that really has that extended beaver tail. And right here, you can see it doesn't poke out. It's kind of like that. I never really had slide bite on it, but it still looks pretty cool and it helps just in case. So that is something I'll give to this one as well. Both American made. Smith & Wesson was always America's counter or contest to the Austrian variants, such as Glock, or German, you know, like Walther, and you know, other foreign pieces like HK, Canik, which is Turkish, and so forth and so forth. Smith & Wesson is definitely an American favorite. They're very well known, especially with their performance centers. They're really hard to beat, honestly. They're both American made, which is good, and which is really good about both of these is that neither of these have the atrocious 22-degree Glock angle. They both have the classic 1911 grip angle, so which is a natural feeling. You don't gotta point down and with your thumbs or stuff like that. You can just do a natural feel, which is what I like. Now, I know you can switch it on Glocks if you have that issue, but the thing is that you still have to work on that if you don't like it. These, you don't gotta work on it. This is just how it comes out of the box. So I really like the grip angle that it has. It just feels really natural. And, you know, I will say though, no hate on the SD. Even though this one does have flatter shooting experience and things like that, this one though, and even though it's a 40, is my most accurate piece. It shouldn't be like that, but it is. This one in my collection is just the best that I'm with. I feel like if I, you know, put myself up on this one against myself with all the others, I feel like I'd probably be the most accurate with this one. That doesn't mean the fastest, you know, that doesn't mean, you know, rapid shooting, nothing like that, right? But I'm just saying in terms of accuracy, you know, precision, tight groups, things like that, I would definitely bet on this one. The sights, it might be the sights. I never had the original sights. It always just came with these glowed sights, the fiber optic. But man, these are super accurate. I just feel like I can be right on point on the dot with this thing. So this is definitely still my best shooter in terms of accuracy. So that is one thing I'll give the SD. And they both look aggressive, right? Now, of course, the color black does have its advantages, such as, you know, if you ever turn off the lights because someone's in your house, you don't want them to see you or your gun. Well, this blends in with shadows and darkness easier. You know, you may be able to see this, or like a reflection, or if there's a little light, this could be seen much easier than the black. Now, as a daytime champ, this is it right here though. But for nighttime, darker colors, that's just, you know, there is an advantage to that. A lot of people don't think of that, but it is true. So daytime, nighttime in terms of color opportunities and advantages. I really like both of these pieces. I feel like you can't really go wrong with either. And of course, this one is budget oriented. This one is if you need something right now on the go, it's gonna work, it's reliable, it's gonna go bang every time. This one is if you have a little cash to spare, and if you want all the upgrades and you want to look like a badass. You know what I mean? This one is badass. This is just, and that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to come with all the upgrades, and that's how it comes right out of the box. More so that I'm even gonna say the price difference, it's not even near. Right now, brand new. Well, the brand new ones for the new variants, the 2.0, you can get that for $300, right? Excluding tax, but still, $300 is like not bad at all. Especially like from Smith and Wesson, you get all that name behind it, all that reliability behind it. They even back you up with the warranty because like they're confident you're not even gonna have issues. So I'd prefer, like, for instance, a budget Smith versus a budget probably anything else, because it's Smith and Wesson. It's a Wesson. Like it's gonna keep going bang every time, and they're always really good with their customer service. You have an issue, they will help you out, no question about that. Now this one, MSRP when it came out was $750 excluding tax. Let's just say you paid max price, you're looking at $800. So like a $500 gap right here, a difference. And now, do I think the gap should be that high? I do think there should be a gap, but probably not that high. I just wish that they went ahead and offered more upgrades. Even though there's a decent aftermarket, I wish they went ahead and offered like a magwell or optics ready variants, or also threaded barrels. They do have threaded barrels from Apex though, for the 9, but not the 40. So, there should be a gap. Now that big of a difference, $500, I don't know, maybe like 300, but this is worth more, and rightfully so. It comes with a lot more upgrades, looks way more aggressive. It has cuts for many reasons. I really like these, man. I really, really do. They're both compacts. Can't really go wrong with either of these. And if you have the 9 and if you have this, I feel like they're both going to serve you well. Don't get too dazzled on the eye just because of all the upgrades. If you have a Smith & Wesson, a 9mm, or even a standard Glock 9mm, or anything like that, they're going to do its job and they're going to serve you perfectly well. They are military rated. They compete in contracts, things like that. They're not to be underestimated. Just because these have all the upgrades, that doesn't mean that you just have to go with these. There's even the argument that you should always carry actually the cheaper option, because these will go in the evidence locker, and do you really want your prized possession going in the evidence locker? Why not use the cheaper option? That I have heard that argument. Now others say, well, I want every advantage possible in the situation, the price doesn't matter. If it gets taken, it gets taken. I get that too. I get both sides. I definitely do, but I'm just trying to say that you can't go wrong with either. You can't go wrong with either at all. If you have this, it's definitely a flex, and if you have this, with the name behind it, it's still something to boast about, because they have a reason to be as prideful as they are as a company. And same with Glock, FN, Beretta, they can all talk their shit, and that's because they all really know what they're doing. Now that doesn't mean some models, some have done better or worse. All it's trying to say is that the brands, they're here for a reason, and these are the big boys. They're not the new guys trying to come up or anything like that. They've been around in the game. They have stripes, they have history, the experience, so you can't go wrong with trusting any of them. Now it really boils down to preference at the end of the day, and the aftermarket. That's, in my opinion, that's what it boils down to. And if I had to go with one do-it-all brand, it is what it is, forget everybody else, I'm going with my boys, Smith & Wesson. These guys, they have everything for me personally. They have the aftermarket that I like. They have the size options that I like. They have every type of configuration, ported, this and that. Glock, they really need to keep up with the times. Everybody has pretty much surpassed them. They're still living in the 90s. They barely added front serrations. They have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of work to do. However, from what they do release, they can be trusted wholeheartedly. So that is one thing that Glock has to flex. It's about perfection right out of the box. And since it's really simple, some might say, simple is best. So if you do hold that philosophy, maybe Glock is for you. Regardless, this is not a Glock, but it's it's based off the Glock. It's what they call like the Gucci Glocks. And Lone Wolf, you definitely can't go wrong with it. I'm really glad I got this. I even got it for the craziest deal, the craziest steal ever, and I'll never get it again in my lifetime. I got this for $200, okay? When brand new, MSRP originally with taxes, this and that, would have been $800, $200. Not even used much. Not even used much. So, very grateful for that, thank God. Anyways, so yeah, that's a little comparison of what I got with the Smith & Wesson SD9/SD40 versus the Lone Wolf LTD19. It's just to show you, the upgrades that this may have versus the SD9 and SD40. Contrary to popular belief, these are actually quite popular, really. You have a lot of people that own these, and you may not even know it. You look this up, you see tons of videos on these, even more than this. Like, honestly, you see tons and tons of people with SDs, which were the original ghetto Glocks. So SDs, they definitely do have a place in my heart. Anyways, guys, let me know if you guys have any questions, thoughts, comments. I appreciate any like, subscribe, all of that. Thanks for tuning in with these Shots with Jay channel. I'm going to definitely be coming up with more content, more comparisons, even unorthodox comparisons like this. Most people would never think of even comparing these two because of the relevance. But I'm here to just show you guys pretty much a comparison against anything. So let me know. I appreciate every view I get. Thank you.